Hi everyone, my name is Nithin and welcome back to PSLE Science, and today I'll be going through reproduction in animals. Okay, let's get started. Okay, for the first segment of this video, I am going to go through what is sexual reproduction. Okay, so what is sexual reproduction? Okay, so sexual reproduction is basically during mating, the male and female come together so that their reproductive cells can meet. Okay? Reproduction that involves a male and a female is known as sexual reproduction. Okay, so I'll go more in detail with the sexual reproduction in this video because this topic is not so important, but when they test, most of the students don't know what actually this topic is testing us about. So you have to listen, okay? And so basically, they say when the male and female come together so that their reproductive cells can meet. So basically, for the male, right? The male actually has a sperm as the reproductive cell, and the female has an egg cell. So the female has a egg cell. And do you know that the egg cell can actually be seen with the naked eye? So you can actually see the egg cell without using a microscope. And the sperm is the smallest cell in a human body. Okay? So these are the two reproductive cells. Okay? Now let's move on. Okay, for the second segment of this video, I am going to go through the male reproductive system. Okay? Okay, so this is the male reproductive system. So, the male reproductive systems, there are two parts. Okay? One is the testes and one is the penis. Okay, so over here, the testes is in ES. So this is in the plural form, because that it is pointing to both of these. Okay, but if you only point to one of these, right, then you should call it testis with IS, not ES. Okay, so this is singular. So this is very important in exam. So if the examiner points at two testes, you must call it testis. Okay, and if the examiner points at one testis, you must write testis. Okay, because they commonly test the labeling of the parts for reproductive systems. Okay, so what is the function of the testis? So the testis basically produces the sperms. So the sperms are actually the male reproductive cell. Okay, and for an additional information, you should know that the sperm production only occurs after the male reaches puberty. Okay, so it only occurs after the male reaches puberty. And for the second part, the penis. Okay, so the penis is a male sex organ which allows urine and sperms to be released from the body. Okay, and for additional information, sperms are deposited in the vagina of a female's reproductive system. Okay, you might not know what is a vagina, but after I go through this, I'll go through the female reproductive system. Okay, and you will get to know what are the other parts of the female reproductive system. Okay, so there's two functions for the penis. So it allows urine to pass out of the body, and it also allows sperms to come out of the body so that it can be deposited into the vagina of the female's reproductive system. Okay, so this is important. Okay, so now let's move on to the next part. Okay, so now let's go through the female reproductive system. Okay, so this is the female reproductive system, and as as you can see, there are definitely more parts for the female reproductive system. Okay, so there are the fallopian tubes, or we could also call it oviducts. Okay, but in exam, please do not write oviducts. Okay, so don't write this in exam. Okay, and we have the ovaries. So these two are the ovaries, and if it points at one, just like the testes, okay, so ovaries is in plural. So if it points at one, we just call it ovary. Okay, so you have to know the difference. And this part over here is the vagina. So just now I told you that the sperms will be deposited into the vagina, right? So it will be deposited here. So next we have the womb or the uterus. Okay, you can write any of this in the exam, womb or uterus. So both of them are right. Uterus is the scientific term and womb is the primary school level term. Okay, so let's take a look at the function of the ovaries, fallopian tube, womb and the vagina. Okay, so first for the ovaries. Okay, the function is that the ovaries produce and store eggs. Mature eggs are released from the ovary. So ovaries are just like the testes. They produce the reproductive cell. Okay, so mature eggs are released from the ovary. So for additional information you need to know is females are born with immature eggs in their ovaries. So mature eggs are released by the ovaries after the female reaches puberty. Okay, so actually, you know the ovaries, right? They already have the eggs inside them. So they already have all the eggs inside them. So when the female reaches puberty, right, every month, either side of the ovary will produce one egg, and sometimes two eggs will be released at the same month. Okay, so this only happens after the female reaches puberty, and more than one egg can be released at a time. But most of the time, right, it's only one egg per month. So one egg released in a month. So basically, right, sometimes both sides can release one egg, and so there's more than one egg release. Okay, so this is for the ovaries. So I hope you understand that. Now let's move on to the fallopian tube. Okay, the fallopian tube is the place where fertilization takes place. Okay, fertilization is basically the fusion of the sperm and egg. So after these two fuse, right, we call this a fertilized egg. And a fertilized egg is how the baby develops into. So the baby develops from a fertilized egg. Okay, and a common misconception, right, is that fertilization takes place in the womb because the baby actually grows in the womb. Fertilization does not occur in the womb, but actually it occurs in the fallopian tubes. And another misconception is that fertilization takes place in the ovary, but it actually doesn't. So it actually takes place in the fallopian tubes. Okay, so you need to know that. Okay, now let me go through the womb or the uterus. Okay, the womb is where the fertilized egg is implanted and develops into a baby. Okay, so after fertilization takes place, right, the egg will actually go down this lane into the womb and attach itself to the wall of the womb. And basically it grows into many cell division, and then it becomes a ball of cells, and then it will slowly form into a fetus, and then it will start growing into a baby. Okay, so you need to know that. And what additional information I have for the womb is that the development of the baby in the womb takes 9 months. So if you have any younger siblings, right, you should know that it takes 9 months for your sibling to be born after fertilization. And this period of 9 months is called the gestation period. Okay, so you can use this word in exam. So instead of saying it takes 9 months to develop a baby, you can just say, so during the gestation period, instead of saying during the 9 months of a female growing the baby, like something like that, right? So you can just say gestation period. So this is a important keyword you should know. Okay, next, lastly for this part called the vagina. Okay, the vagina is also known as the birth canal, as this is the passageway for the baby to pass out of the mother's body. Okay, so the vagina is the place where sperms are released during sexual reproduction. So remember I told you that? So basically, right, the baby comes out from the vagina. So if the baby grows in the womb, right, over here, right, it's a very big baby, right, so it will come out of the vagina like that. Okay, and sometimes, right, the baby will not come out from the vagina because sometimes the umbilical cord will be wrapped around the neck, and so it's in a dying scenario, so they have to actually do cesarean to the female in order to take out the baby. So basically they cut out and they will take out the baby from the womb of the mother. Okay, you understand that? So you don't need to know about this cesarean. It's just about I'm just telling you additional information that it's not an everyday scenario where the baby comes from the vagina. It's not a always happening kind of thing. Okay, so now let's move on to the next one. Okay, now I'm going to talk about fertilization if you still do not understand it. Okay, so basically there are two types of fertilization. Okay, first let me tell you the internal fertilization. So basically you need to know what fertilization means. I already told you in the previous slide. So fertilization is basically when the sperm fuses with the egg. If you're not comfortable writing sperm and egg, and if you want to be safe, right, you can just say the male / female reproductive cell. So fertilization is the process where sperm fuses with the egg. Instead of that, you can say fertilization is the process where the sperm fuses with, or not the sperm, so you replace it with the male reproductive cell, where the male reproductive cell fuses with the female reproductive cell. You could also say like that. Okay, so basically there are two types of fertilization. One is internal fertilization, so fertilization inside of the body. And this is outside of the body, because this is external fertilization. So first let me go through internal fertilization, and this happens in humans and many other animals. So in the process of internal fertilization, the sperm cell fuses with the egg cell inside the body of the female. This process occurs in mammals, reptiles, birds, and some types of fish. Okay, so only some types of fish. So this is important. Okay, and external fertilization is not tested in syllabus, but it's good to know this. Okay, so it is not in syllabus. Okay, now let me talk about external fertilization. So in the process of external fertilization, the sperm cell fuses with the egg cell outside the body of the female. This process occurs in fish and amphibians. So basically how this happens is like, imagine there's a fish here, right? So imagine this is a fish, right? Imagine this is the female fish. Okay, it basically releases all its eggs out. Okay, and then the male fish over here, right? Okay, this is the male fish, right? Then you will release all its sperms over here. And then these sperms, because since they are in the water, right, the sperms actually have this tail over here. Okay, and the sperms can use this tail to swim. Okay, so they will swim to the eggs, and which one gets fertilized, right? So it will become a fertilized eggs. And this happens in amphibians as well. So for frogs, right, you all know that the frogs lay many eggs, and the male frog, right, it will actually fertilize the eggs with its sperms. And then that's why there are so many eggs at a time. And do you know why there are so many eggs produced at a time? Okay, so it's basically to ensure the continuity of their survival, because many animals will want to eat the frog's eggs, and so even if there are few left, right, the frog cycle can continue. So those few eggs could become adults, and they could have more eggs, and then so it's just a cycle. Okay, so this is what I mean. So I hope you understand this. So this happens in amphibians as well. Okay, now let me move on. Okay, for the fifth segment of this video, I am going to go through fertilization in humans. Okay, so basically for humans, the testis, right? So the testis produces the sperm. Okay, the ovary produces the egg, and this testis will actually go into the egg, and once one of the sperm goes into the egg, right, the egg will freeze. Okay, so no other sperm can go inside. So do you know how they are like twins? Basically, right, when two sperms reach the egg at the exact same time, this nucleus right over here, you've learned from cell systems, right, this nucleus over here will actually split into two. So basically now there will be like two parts, and this is baby 1 and this is baby 2. Okay, and that's how it happens. And sometimes it could be in different eggs. Remember I told you the scenario where both ovaries produce one egg? So both sperms like go into the egg. So these are twins. Okay, these are not twins. They are twins, but they don't look the same. These two look the same. Okay, so you need to know that. Okay, now let me after fertilization, there will become a fertilized egg, and then cell division takes place and this fertilized egg becomes many cells. Remember, our human body has many cells, right? We can't just live with one cell, so it slowly cell divides. There's a lot of cell division occurring, and then it becomes a ball of cells, and then it will become a fetus, and then this fetus will grow into a baby, and then it will come out and it will be a baby. Okay, so this is how the baby actually grows. So it takes 9 months for the baby to develop, called the, do you remember, gestation period. Okay, remember. Okay, now let's move on. So the sperm produced by the testis fuses the egg produced by the ovary in the fallopian tube in the process of fertilization, forming the fertilized egg. The fertilized egg is then implanted in the womb and undergoes cell division, developing into a ball of cells to eventually develop into a fully formed baby. Okay, so this is how you explain whatever just happened in this table right over here. Okay, now let's move on. Okay, for number 6, I'm going to show you 2 more questions, I think, yeah. So, how does the baby receive food? So this is the question over here. How does the baby receive food? No, this is the last question, okay? How does the baby receive food? So this is a very common question, and this is extremely important that you need to know, because they may ask this in various forms. So I'm going to go through this in this video, and in my next video I'll actually go through the more of the important questions, okay? Okay, so how does the baby receive food? So the baby is actually connected to the mother through the umbilical cord. So the umbilical cord is basically what I'm highlighting over here. See this? This is the umbilical cord. And you know your belly button, right? That's where your umbilical cord is connected to your belly button. Okay, so this is where the umbilical cord is connected to. Okay, so the umbilical cord transports oxygen and nutrients from the mother's blood to the baby. And why does oxygen need to be transported? Because the baby is fully surrounded by fluid. That's why it can't breathe inside there. So it transports oxygen through this umbilical cord over here. Okay? And nutrients from the mother's blood to the baby. The umbilical cord also allows waste materials and carbon dioxide to be removed from the baby and passed into the mother's blood, which is then removed through the mother's body. So if the baby has waste materials, right, it will go through, and then the mother will actually release with the baby's one. Okay, so this is how the baby receives food, and I hope you understand what I've explained in today's video. And thank you, and bye bye. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.